Hey everyone, so this is going to be a much more informal video for us to go over because I'm sick and tired of these SEC fans talking about, oh, we have this win, we have that win, and yada, yada, yada. Georgia just beat Tennessee tonight, and that's one of the only wins that can actually reflect on being like a super good win for somebody in the conference, but it's still against the conference opponent that really hasn't played anybody or beaten anybody. So we're going to take a look from the very beginning, the top team in the conference, and see who have they actually beat, and is it actually impressive who they're beating? Because everybody in the SEC wants to talk about how, oh, well, we beat this SEC team, we beat that SEC team. Guess what? The SEC plays 8 conference games, and outside of those 8 conference games, they play cupcake ACC opponents, and they play cupcake FCS, and all those other kind of team opponents. So there's nobody that's really showing themselves as like this great huge contender that's actually beating top tier teams from outside their conference. So I just want to take a look at it. I want everybody else to see. My hair is looking weird right here. There we go. I want everybody to see all the weirdness of all of this. Okay, so let's start with Texas and look at them first. All right, so this is one of my favorite websites to use called collegepolltracker.com. It tracks like all the AP voters and stuff like that. And it's one of the best resources for doing stuff like this. So scroll down, you get their schedule. It looks nice. They have the ranking of the team when they beat them, and then they also have like the in the green if they won or not, and then the red if they lost. All right, so pretty simple to look at there. Let's actually look at who did Texas actually beat? Like, who did they actually beat? I know there are rankings on here, but who did they actually beat? Michigan. If you're a Big Ten fan, you know Michigan's not very good. Okay, they were overhyped from the beginning of the year. Jim Harbaugh is not there anymore. JJ McCarthy is not there anymore. This is not the same Michigan team at all, who Texas got credit for beating, and they still get credit for beating. I don't care if people want to label a top win or not. Texas became the number one team in the nation when they beat Michigan, even though they shouldn't have got that much credit for it. And then come later on, Indiana beats Michigan, and Indiana gets credit for it, and the SEC fans get mad and go crazy and say, that's a terrible thing. So which is it? Do you get credit for beating Michigan or not? Texas did. Why not give it to IU? Give IU credit. Or you can do what I'd say, which is don't give either of them credit because it wasn't a good win for either team. Now, I said on the show that I thought it was a good performance by Indiana, showing their resilience and showing them in a close game against some players that are going to play in the NFL. But overall, Michigan's not a good team. So how are you going to label that as some, great big thing? You can't. You can't do it for Texas and then not do it for Indiana. In reality, you can't do it for either of them. All right, well, you look down and you say, well, JR, they beat Oklahoma. Okay. Oklahoma. Let's go to them. Let's look what they did. They won 3 games to start the season against Temple, Houston, and Tulane. They beat Houston by 4 points. Then they lost to Tennessee, closer game, beat Auburn, and then lost 3 straight. So their second loss was to Texas, which makes it look like, oh, they were what, the 15th team in the nation, and they lost. Well, everybody who's anybody knows that this Oklahoma team is not the 15th best team in the nation. I'm not even showing you guys records right now. I'm just showing you the team because I don't think records make all that much sense. I think at this point we know what teams are and what teams aren't. And I'm not necessarily saying that like Indiana played this amazing schedule or like Penn State played this amazing schedule or even Oregon played this amazing schedule. I'm just showing you that like neither has the SEC. So this whole argument that the SEC has played SEC teams that make them way better, it's really not. Like, do they have some talent? Maybe, but it's not that much better of a schedule. Texas lost to Georgia. All right, we'll get to them here soon. But let's look at Vanderbilt. Okay, one at Vanderbilt. Good job, Texas. Who has Vanderbilt beat? Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech was number 27 because they are receiving votes. Look at that. They've not received votes once since then. Virginia Tech is not a good team. They are 5-5 on the year. So again, record's not the super biggest indicator, but still. Vanderbilt lost to Missouri. Missouri This is one of the most fraudulent teams in all of the country, and this is one of the teams that people prop up like, oh yeah, we beat them. Alabama, oh yeah, we beat them 34-0. Oh yeah, Texas A&M, we beat them 41-10. South Carolina just beat them. Okay, we'll get to South Carolina a little bit later, but like, it's just ridiculous. Texas or not Texas? Who is this? Vanderbilt almost beat Alabama, or they did beat Alabama. I apologize. They beat Alabama. Okay, sure. Is Alabama a good team? Alabama. Who have they beaten? Western Kentucky. That game against South Florida was way closer than it looks, and they beat Wisconsin. Congrats. You beat a Wisconsin team that's 5-5 right now because they just lost to Oregon. I mean, they gave Oregon a good game. Give them credit for that, but still. They lost to Wisconsin. It was a big noon kickoff. They didn't even let them play a night game, which thanks big noon kickoff. They beat Georgia. Okay. They lost to Vanderbilt. They lost to Tennessee. They beat Missouri. We already talked about Missouri. They beat LSU. Okay, let's look at LSU. If you want to prop up LSU as a big win, it's not. LSU lost to USC, and they lost their last 3 games, including to Florida. Now, I know it's at Florida, but still, Sunbelt Billy just beat Brian Kelly. We really think LSU is that good of a team? The only reason these SEC teams are ranked right now is because there are teams in the Big Ten that are playing each other and beating each other in the middle of the conference. So everybody wants to call them mid. But when teams at the top of the SEC beat each other, everybody wants to call them elite and talk about how great they are. Or maybe it's just the conference that gets the most love from ESPN. And so they're like, well, this team, I guess, is ranked. And they don't play anybody they're out of conference. So their record's going to look really good. I mean, look at this. Nickel State and UCLA. UCLA, sure, they looked a little bit better here lately, but they're not a good team. And they beat USC, who, I mean, USC's been in a bunch of close games this year, and LSU is one of the only close games they won. Nebraska being the other one. So great job, Ryan Kelly. Smash the desk again, right? Yeah. All right. So let's look at this. Okay. Who did LSU beat? LSU beat Ole Miss. All right. That is probably Ole Miss and South Carolina. Okay. It's probably some of their best wins right there. Let's look at Ole Miss. Who did Ole Miss actually beat? Georgia. That's it. Furman, Middle Tennessee, Wake Forest, Georgia Southern, South Carolina, Georgia. And they lost to Kentucky. So, and they lost to LSU. So, like, how are we actually saying this LSU team or this Ole Miss team is actually something good? Because they beat Georgia? Well, let's look at Georgia. Who did Georgia actually beat? All right. Georgia is one of the only teams that has actually played somebody in the out of conference, and it was Clemson when they were ranked 14. But even Clemson, like they're not all that good. Let's look at Clemson. We'll get back to Georgia. Don't worry. Look at Clemson. Clemson gets blown out by Georgia. Then they beat number 23 App State. You know where App State's at now? They're 4-5 in the Sun Belt. They're not a good team. But of course, you get credit for that ranked win. You beat NC State, who was ranked, and then Tennessee killed them, and then they're not ranked, and then you beat them. Congratulations. Florida State, Wake Forest, Virginia, Stanford, Virginia Tech, Pittsburgh, and they lost to Louisville. What top-tier wins are on there to make you think that Clemson is a top-tier team? I mean, Pittsburgh was ranked at one point and undefeated, but Pittsburgh is also playing nobody when they did that. Let's go back to Georgia. All right, Georgia lost to Alabama. That looked like a closer game, and they did have a chance there to win at the end. But Alabama, I mean, just throttled them for most of that game. And then they lose to Ole Miss. Now, they beat Tennessee, right? So great, that's a big win. Well, and everybody's going to look at Texas and say, oh, well, they beat Texas. That's a great win. Remember, we just walked through Texas. Texas hasn't beaten anybody. Texas is still getting credit for beating Michigan. And so now they beat Tennessee tonight. Oh, okay. Great win by Georgia. Look at Tennessee. What has Tennessee done? Hint, beat more SEC teams. NC State, number 24 in the nation. Oh, they must be good. No, they're 5-5. They're another overrated ACC team that was in the preseason rankings that wasn't all that good. They beat Oklahoma, who was at the time number 15. Like we said, Oklahoma, not that good of a team. They lost to Arkansas at Arkansas. People want to talk about how Arkansas is good. Okay. Arkansas lost to Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State is awful. Oklahoma State has lost their last 7 games. They're 3-7. But people want to ignore that, just like they want to ignore LSU losing to USC. How convenient. People want to remember all these SEC teams beating Clemson and beating this team in the out of conference and that team in the out of conference, but they don't want to remember Oklahoma State beating Arkansas. They don't want to remember Georgia State beating Vanderbilt. They don't want to remember USC beating LSU. They don't want to remember that. Which, by the way, remember, a lot of these are cupcakes that the SEC gets to play because they only play 8 conference games. Going back here. Again, Alabama. How many people are we going to give credit to for beating Alabama when Alabama, again, it's just a circle of beating each other. It's just the circle of beating each other. The circle of beating each other and beating teams in the middle of the Big Ten. Congratulations. Like, that you beat Wisconsin. And nobody here is arguing that Wisconsin is a top tier team. And I'm not even arguing that like some of these SEC teams shouldn't be ranked. It's fine with me that they're ranked. That's fine. Whatever. Rank LSU. I don't care. Rank Missouri. I don't care. But to act like the gauntlet of the SEC is just that much more difficult, that much harder. Like the Big Ten has 4 top 5 teams, all with no losses or 1 loss to each other. They haven't lost to anybody else in their conference. You don't have Tennessee losing to Arkansas. You don't have Alabama losing to Vanderbilt. And when those teams did, if they did lose like that, they wouldn't get the love to be ranked like Vanderbilt did to automatically be ranked when they beat Alabama, even though they had just lost to Georgia State. I feel like I've covered every team here. This is South Carolina. Let's look at South Carolina really fast. I don't want to leave any stone unturned. I know I'll have SEC fans telling me that it's ridiculous. South Carolina beat Kentucky. Great job. They also lost to LSU, lost to Ole Miss, lost to Alabama. South Carolina has not actually beaten anybody of significance. You beat Oklahoma when they were still receiving votes. Congrats. They shouldn't have been. You beat Texas A&M. That's another team we can look at. Congrats. Beat Vanderbilt, again, who lost to Georgia State. And you beat Missouri, who has been blown out by every ranked team that they've played. Well, not every ranked team, but every team that's still ranked that they played. Let's look at Texas A&M. How in the world was Texas A&M ever ranked this high? Notre Dame, McNeese State, Bowling Green, who they barely beat, and New Mexico State. They lost to Notre Dame at home. Barely beat Bowling Green. Because people want to knock Penn State for that. They want to say, oh, well, Penn State barely beat Bowling Green. Well, you want to knock your own teams for that? No, I don't think so. Barely beat Arkansas. Blew out Missouri, overrated Missouri. Beat Mississippi State by 10. Toledo beat them more than by that. Beat LSU. Lost to South Carolina. It's just a circle of going around and around and around, beating each other. And you want to give credit because like, oh, well, this team's ranked, that team ranked. It's just round and round and round. The only actual wins out of conference of any actual significance so far is Georgia beating Clemson. Congrats. Tennessee beat NC State. Congrats. You can't prop up an entire conference on the fact that Alabama beat Wisconsin, Georgia beat Clemson, and who was the other one I said? Tennessee beat NC State. You can't prop up an entire conference on those out-of-conference wins. And yes, I know the Big Ten doesn't have as many of those out-of-conference wins either. I know. Ohio State didn't beat anybody in the out-of-conference. Indiana didn't beat anybody in the out-of-conference. At least Oregon beat Boise State, who's a ranked team. We can talk about if they beat anybody, but still, they beat a ranked team in Boise State. Talk about Penn State, who played at West Virginia, right? Texas A&M, they played at home against Notre Dame and lost, which West Virginia, they're about the same as NC State. But to act like the SEC is that far above, at this point, I'm not even vying for the fact that like the Big Ten is that much better than the SEC. At this point, I'm just saying like, don't just assume that just because Indiana is 10-0 that it's all fraudulent. Don't just assume just because Georgia's 8-2 that they would destroy everybody else. It wouldn't happen. It wouldn't happen. Maybe the SEC is the best conference out there. Maybe it is. Is it that much better that Indiana would lose 4 or 5 games in the conference like people are saying? No. It's not that much better. Indiana's playing really good ball right now. A lot of teams in the Big Ten play good ball. But when the SEC has 1 through 10 beat up on each other, they want to talk about how, oh, well, they're all great. But when the Big Ten has 5 through 15 beat up on each other, it's like, oh, well, they're all mid. Pick a lane, you know? But of course, they don't want to. All right. I think we covered all the teams. I guess we could look up Florida if we want. Florida lost to Miami, Florida. Texas A&M, Tennessee. They beat Kentucky. Congrats. Georgia, Texas, and they beat LSU. Florida going to be ranked next. They've never received a vote all season long to be ranked. But maybe since they beat LSU, they'll get ranked. Who knows? Let me know what you guys think. You guys think I'm crazy? You guys think I'm right? What do you guys think? This was pretty informal. I had to get on here and rant about this. So let me know what you guys think. You guys agree the SEC is just one big circle of beating each other? Or do you think that there's actual arguments for the SEC being good? Which I'm talking about this year. Don't give me the bull crap of like, well, Georgia won the national championship. Well, guess what? So did Michigan. They stink. So what you did last year doesn't really matter all that much. What are you doing this year? If you come at me and you say, well, this team did this last year, I'm just going to ignore you because it's a stupid argument. All right, everybody. Thanks. If you want to catch more of the Big Ten Huddle, I have our live episodes at 9 o'clock on Sunday night. Tuesday night, we have a basketball episode on Thursday night. We have a Power Rankings episode on Saturday after all the Big Ten games are done. Thanks, everybody, for watching. We appreciate it. Have a good one.